This session is going to be cover kind of an intro to the features of Google Classroom, as well as actually walk you through some activities, and then we'll give you some time to work in your own Google Classroom. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Google Classroom, this is the opening screen that both teachers and students get in Google Classroom. So from this screen, both teachers and students see every single class that they're part of in Google Classroom. And if you're in a middle school or high school environment, teachers and students may set up different classes for each subject. Okay? If you're in an elementary, if your teachers do any switching, they may have different classes for their different periods. I don't know. But basically, this is the way teachers and students will access Google Classroom. It's kind of nice that both teachers and students at any point can click up here in the menu bar, and a teacher would be able to see all of the assignments they've assigned across all of their classes. Students would be able to see all of the assignments they have due across all of their classes, so they can quickly get a picture of what they have coming up. Okay? We're all going to go ahead and go into our paperless learning environment classroom. So those of you who are logged in, you may have to click join, because I've sent you an invitation to join my classroom. If you've already joined it, you'll go ahead and hop in here. Now, what is nice about the way Google Classroom is set up is there's two ways students can join a class. I have invited all of you through the student accounts that I gave you, but at any point, if there was a new student who joined the class, Google automatically provides a class code that a student can use to join the class. So if I have a student come in 2 weeks through school, they can simply log into their Google account, type in the class code, and they can become part of my class, get all my handouts, everything like that. Okay? Just to take you through one of the things that is kind of nice, if you'll all click on the About tab. This is a screen that Google added midway through last year. This kind of gives teachers the ability to add a website type feature for their classroom. So in the About section, teachers can have a classroom title, a description that could include learning objectives, things that they're going to cover in their classroom over the year, where the classroom meets, a link to the Google Drive folder where everything for the classroom exists, handouts, assignments, that type of thing. One of the new features that just appeared this week is that Google has now tied Classroom into Calendar. So in your Google Calendar, you will actually have a calendar that is specific for this class. So if you add assignment due dates, they will automatically appear in that calendar. If you want to add school events, you can go to that calendar in your Google Calendar area, and you can add school events or things that will show up for the students. Okay? And then the last thing that teachers can add in the About area, down here it says Add Materials. So you have the ability to add non-assignment specific handouts. So you can provide homework policies, classroom supplies, those types of PDFs that you want students to have access to all year long. Teacher would simply go down here, click on Add Materials, and then they could say, you know, classroom supply list, and they could attach anything, whether it's a PDF that they want to upload, or something from their Google Drive, or maybe they could even include a YouTube video of themselves introducing, you know, whatever they need for the class. So those are all in the About section. Questions about that?
Where would that populate on this?
So for you, it would still populate on the About oh, in terms of the materials? Okay, I'll go ahead and add one just so you can see. So sample attachment, and I'll add something from my Google Drive. post. Okay? So now if you go ahead and just refresh that screen, you will now get my presentation. Okay? So a teacher can at any point add that information to the About screen, beginning of the year, mid-year, anything like that. Now this again would kind of be non-assignment specific. So they would just be general information the teacher either wants to give to the students or parents in the classroom. Any other questions about the About screen? Okay, so next, your screen in the middle says classmates. I'm in the teacher view. I'm going to go ahead and click students. So in students, as a teacher, I see all of the students that have been invited and who have accepted. If I wanted to invite more students into Google Classroom, I just click on invite and I could add people. Okay. Or if I had a student who used to be in my class but has since left, I can click on their name and I can remove them from the class. So it's very easy to add or remove students from Google Classroom. As I said, you as a teacher are always given a class code so students can join your class. If for some reason your class is super popular and people are joining who shouldn't be part of your class, you do, of course, have the option to disable that class code so students can't join it, or you can reset it if for some reason it's not working. The other thing that we're going to get to in a little bit is you have, as the teacher, the ability to limit how much interaction your students give you in Google Classroom. You'll see right now, I have this turned on so students can post and comment in Google Classroom, which means I can make announcements as a teacher to students. Students can comment on those announcements. They can ask questions, they can share their thoughts, but students can also post their own items. So if I'm teaching a unit and a student finds a resource that I'm not aware of, a student can actually create their own announcement in Google Classroom that the other students can read, comment on, follow links, that type of thing. If that concerns you, teachers have the ability to limit and say students can't post their own stuff, they can only comment on what I have. Or you can say I don't even want students to be able to do that, I want to be the only one that can post or comment. My personal theory on that is Google Classroom is a phenomenal place to teach digital citizenship. Okay? I have no doubt, given a class, that at some point some student is going to say something inappropriate. But it's better to do that in this type of environment where you can work and talk with the kids about that than have them do that on Facebook or Instagram. Okay? This is a nice learning environment for that. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this as post and comment, and you'll kind of see how that works. But in this students area, or for you classmates, that's about all that really happens here. Obviously, the other thing is, if I wanted to contact a student, I could click on the little envelope to send them a message. Google Classroom doesn't have its own messaging system. All of that is done through Gmail. So if you're in an elementary school setting where Gmail may not be turned on for your students, teachers and students can click on the envelopes by student names, but nothing happens. The message doesn't go anywhere. Okay? So it depends on whether or not Gmail is active and what permissions you have in Google Apps set up for where that message can go. The next area, so mute means that that particular student can't contribute to a stream or a comment, just that particular student, but other people can. Okay? So that if you say students can post and comment, but you mute that one student, they won't be able to. Okay? Any other questions about students or classmates? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Stream. And I'd like you all to jump over to Stream. So a popular question about Google Classroom is this a learning management system? Does this compare with Blackboard or Schoology or Edmodo or any of those types of things? And quite honestly, I'd say it has some of those features, but it is not a full-blown learning management system. So for example, one of the things that Google doesn't allow you to do too well is to arrange all of your stuff into units, okay? I can add items for the students to interact with here in Google Classroom, but I can't say, you know, I want all of the stuff that I put here now to go into a folder called Week 1, module about the Civil War, and then put a whole bunch of stuff into Week 2, module about, you know, the early years, that type of thing. What Google has allowed teachers to do so far is I'm able to create things that I want students to have access to and save them as drafts. And then once they're in draft mode, when I actually need them, I can click on them and post them into the classroom. And then in this stream, everything appears in reverse chronological order. Okay? The newest stuff is at the top, the older stuff is down at the bottom. Okay? Just like a blog. So, I have an opening discussion question. Remember, we're talking about reading and writing. So I have a question here that says, what are your resources for high-interest nonfiction reading materials for your students? This is a question I've posted ahead of time. You'll see that in my question, I've posted some links for you to explore. This is one of the nice things about Google Classroom, is if your students have trouble typing URLs correctly, and you want them all to go to the same website to start a class, you can actually put in an announcement, hey class, we're going to start here, put the link in for the students, and all they'll have to do is click on it to go there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and post this. I've saved it. I'm now going to post it. And what you're going to hopefully see on the left-hand side of your screen is something that says the stream has been updated, and you will see this post go live in the middle of your screen. You may need to refresh your screen in order to see it. But once you get it, you can, if you've never heard of Newsla, you can click on it, and that will open in its own window, and you can explore that feature. Okay? And the page is loading. Oops. Did I provide the wrong link? Should that be newsla.com? I may have to edit that. Okay. I'll go ahead and click on Tween Tribune. All of these resources have this feature similar. One of the things I like about the 3 resources that I provided for you are when you go into a reading piece, you are presented that reading piece at a particular lexile level. And so your students may be able to read at that level, maybe they need some more text complexity, or maybe they need a little bit less. But as I click on these different lexile levels, it will then take that same reading material and reduce the sentence complexity or increase it. So basically, all of your students are getting the same content, but hopefully they're getting it at a level that they can understand. Okay? Tween Tribune does give you the option to sign up for a free account. Newsla, it's kind of a freemium tool. You can use it for free, or you get the ability to track student reading if you sign up for a paid account, that type of thing. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to explore that. I'm going to go here and edit. And I think I should have put in newsla.com. Let's try that. There we are. So that's Newsla, in case you haven't heard of it. So same type of thing. You can go to an article. You have to sign in for a free account, and then you can change the lexile levels here to get same article, just written differently. And what I wanted you to do as you spend a little bit of time searching through those is add a comment so you can see how that stream feature works. Maybe you've heard of one of these and it's a really good one. You can share an idea on how you use it with your students. Or maybe there's one that I don't have on this list that you think others in this class should know about. So feel free in the announcement to just click on Add Class Comment and share some information. Everybody's able to get those links. Those links work for you?
Yeah.
Okay. So go ahead and add a comment if there's one that you use or one that you know about that we don't have. I'm going to give you a couple minutes just to explore those and try out the comment feature. So a couple of students have added some comments to the class discussion. So if this were part of a threaded discussion in class, you as a student have the option to click on somebody's response and reply to it. Notice that I, as the teacher, have the ability to delete if it's something that's inappropriate. The student who originally made that comment has the ability to delete their comment as well. One of the things that teachers do ask at this point typically is if a student makes an inappropriate comment and then deletes it, does that hide it from the class? Can they get away with doing something inappropriate? And the answer is Google has built in a feature here for the teachers that says show deleted items, and they can turn it on. That show deleted items only appears for the teacher. So if somebody reported to the teacher, hey, so-and-so posted something inappropriate last night, the teacher can show deleted items, look through the transcript, and then talk to the student and say, hey, I noticed this happened. Nobody else in the class sees that. That's just for teacher viewing. Okay? But everything's recorded, so they can always go back and look at that. Okay? Does anybody have any other sources for reading materials besides those three that they like to use or want to share? Newsla, Tween Tribune, ReadWorks, anybody else? No? Okay. All right, so in this announcements scenario, I've basically shown you that a teacher can give an introduction to a resource, provide some links to web-based objects. They again could be YouTube videos, they could be an uploaded PDF, they could be instructions for the day, and then students can ask questions or share information that they want to about that opening announcement. Any questions about that feature of Google Classroom? Okay. So far, just kind of a basic layout of Google Classroom, and then I've shown you how you could potentially start a lesson with the announcement. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my drafts area, and I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the close reading activity that I've given you. So, bless you, in the close reading activity that I've set up, I have the name of an activity, I've got some instructions that I'd like you to follow, and then I've got a due date when this needs to be turned in Google Classroom. In case some of the people don't know what close reading is, I've included a link to a YouTube video to give you some instructions. And then I've actually given every student a copy of what I want the close reading activity to be. This, for the districts I've worked with, is probably the biggest win. Because if any of you have used Google Docs or Google Drive for a number of years, it used to be the way to do this, a teacher would make a copy of a document and make it view only. They'd share it with the students. Students would have to make a copy, edit it, and then share their copy back to the teacher. So a teacher would have to sort through what's in my drive, what's in my shared with me, how do I organize everything into a folder. By adding this option that Google Classroom is going to make a copy for each student, when I press post, every one of you is going to get an assignment in your Google Drive. It's going to be forced out to you called Tween Tribune, Close Reading, and then your name at the end. So Google Classroom automatically puts your name on the file. And then when you turn it into me, I knows who it is, and I can provide feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and assign that. And again, all of you should get something telling you that the stream has been updated and you now have an assignment from me. Okay, you can click on the video to watch some introductions about close reading. You will see the instructions here that say please highlight 3 words that you'd like to learn more about and respond to the reading activities on page 2 of that document. As a teacher in real time, I can see how many have been handed out and how many have not been turned in to me yet for the class. So, what I'd like you all to do at this point is I'd like you to click on your Tween Tribune close reading activity. So you should all see something that's similar to this. Tween Tribune, close reading, and it's got your name on it. And the very first thing that I've asked you to do in the opening instructions was highlight 3 words that you'd like to learn more about. So we're going to pretend that you're in a classroom, you're looking for 3 words that you're not quite sure what they mean. And if you wanted to, in case you weren't aware of this, a very, very quick and easy way to highlight a word in Google Docs is if I wanted to highlight this word neighborhoods, the common way to highlight it is click and hold and drag across the word, but a quick way to do it is simply to double click on the word. When you double click on the word, it just highlights that one word. And then if I wanted to highlight it, click up here on the text color, change it to highlight, and I can pick any color I want to highlight the word. Okay, so if you do a step up to reading program or anything like that, you can double click on a word, highlight it, and move on. If you start to then think about, well, if I wanted to highlight a paragraph, you can triple click on a paragraph that will highlight that paragraph. Okay, so I'm going to give you a minute or 2 to look for 3 words. Scroll down, and these are the close reading activities that you're being asked to accomplish. Jot down some main ideas from the article as you do your close reading, and I'll come around and make sure that everything's working for you. I'm not going to be able to necessarily demonstrate this next step because I am in this teacher view, but as you're working in your Google Doc, one of the nice comforting things about working in Docs is that Google does save your work for you. So you should see across the top, all changes are saved in Drive. So as students work, as they highlight, as they type, everything kind of gets saved for them automatically. So obviously, the next thing you're going to want to do as a student is you're going to want to turn your work into the teacher. So when you close your Google Doc, and you go back to Google Classroom, you will have a button that says Turn In. So I'm going to give you a minute to go ahead and finish your activity, and I can see in real time that one student has already clicked Turn In. I have no idea if the student's actually done, but I do know they've clicked on the Turn In button, and I'm able to look at that assignment. So now as a teacher, I can come in here to Close Reading Activity, and I can see all of my students' work. Okay? So what used to happen is, I would have to go to my Shared With Me folder and kind of find each individual student's work in there by searching for their name or the name of the document. But now I can simply click on each activity to see what they've done. So James Madison, click on it. And so all from one screen, I can see the work that the student has done. Okay? Salvation, rubbish, and labyrinth are the 3 words. Okay? So now as a teacher, I have the ability to double click on this word, say insert comment. I can say, great word. Let's discuss this with the rest of the class. Okay, and then I can say maybe insert comment, What do you think this word means? And comment on that. Then I can go back here, close that because it's saved all my work. I can click on James Madison here, and I can say I want to return that work to James Madison. Okay? And so now I've given James Madison some comments. James Madison can continue with the work, and then James Madison can turn it back into me, and I can move on to the next student, open their work, and offer some comments and suggestions, and return it back to the student. So I can work through all of my students' work, giving them feedback, that type of thing along the way. So in James Madison, the other thing I can do, if I click on James Madison's name, because I've worked with it, I can see the submission history. So I can see when James Madison first turned it in, when I returned it, when James Madison turns it back into me, that type of stuff. So one of the other questions that teachers will generally ask when I give an assignment and it has a due date, Google Classroom does not stop the student from turning the assignment in after the due date, but in this submission history, it will note if the student was late when they turned the assignment in. Okay? Any questions about teachers assigning work to students, students working on it, saving it, their work, turning it in, or kind of that feedback loop that I have with a student where they turn something into me, I can click on it, make some comments, and then return it to the student for more additional work. Obviously, if it was at the end and James Madison was completely done, I do have the option of giving James Madison a grade. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to another assignment that I have prepared. And in my drafts, I have an activity here where I'd like you to write a summary of your experience at the CapCUE Tech Fest. And what I've included in here is I've included a Google Drawing organizer for your activity. So if you get this, you will see it's the traditional burger image. Each one of these red boxes is a text box where you can click in there, type your topic sentence, your details, that type of thing. So what I've included is that document starter, and that's it. Because what I want to show you with this is when you open that assignment, you have the ability to work with that template to kind of plan out your writing. But then I've left it kind of open in terms of how you turn in that summary. When you open this assignment, down below the actual assignment, you will have the ability to add additional items. So you as a student could say, all right, I want to write my summary in a Google Doc. So I'm going to add a Google Doc that I've created. You as a student could say, I want to present my summary as a Google slide deck. So I want to add a Google slide presentation. Or you could say, I think it would be great if the teacher saw the website that accompanied this. So you can add a link to show me what you used as research or what you used as background information. So go ahead and open up the assignment. And when you open up the assignment, you will go ahead and see my writing activity. So what I'm trying to do with this assignment is show you that as a teacher, you have the ability to add templates or scaffolding for what you want your students to do, but then also through that add feature, give your students some flexibility in terms of what they turn in. Not everybody has to turn in a Google Docs written assignment. They can add anything they want as part of their assignment. Now, some of you may have noticed that when a student clicks on Turn In, they do have an Unsubmit button. So if a student decides, oops, I turned it in, but I'm not quite done yet, I need to unsubmit it and turn something back in, they have the flexibility to do that. Just keep in mind for both you and your students that if a student turns something in, unsubmits it, and turns it back in, all of that is recorded in the submission history. So you always have a track record of what the students have been doing. Okay, so 2 are done. So here's Marie Washington's, got 2 attachments. So I can see Maria Washington, if I click on this, this is the writing organizer that I distributed. Okay. And then I can click on the summary. So this is a different Google drawing. So it looks like a big text box that they added. So the student, Marie Washington, was able to fill out my organizer and then add an additional file with their work. Okay, and say, great job, Marie. Thanks for sharing your summary. Okay, post and return. So now Marie will see that I've given her a grade and a comment about the work. I can go back and see who else is done. See what George Washington submitted the graphic organizer. I don't see any other attachments. James Madison's turned in the graphic organizer. Okay, no other attachments. So I could click here. So Thomas Jefferson's got 2 attachments. That should open. I don't know why that's not opening. John Adams, 3 attachments. Here's the writing organizer. And then here's a drawing. And then here's a slideshow. Okay? So a student, as you can see from that add feature, is able to add multiple documents in reply to an assignment. This is a new feature that Google added to Classroom, and this is called a question. So the concept behind this is similar to like an exit ticket or something like that. So I have asked, we've talked about reading and writing from a classroom perspective. I'm simply asking you, how do you find your own pleasure reading? Okay, so if I click Ask, do I want students to be able to see and reply to each other's answers or to be able to edit their own answers? You can see that these are checkboxes. For the sake of this, I'm going to go ahead and say see and reply to each other's answers, and you can edit it if you need to. Now I'm asking you that question. So you should see that pop in. All right, and I'll go ahead and add my own comment. I use Goodreads to see what my friends are reading as a suggestion list. Post. Okay. So in order for you to see everybody's answers, you have to click on that question. This actually doesn't give you credit for turning in a response to your question. Okay? You actually have to click on it, and you'll notice that here are my 6 done. These are the actual assignments that I can grade. So that comment section, more in this case, the students would use it more for a clarifying question or a comment on my ending question. So they might say, is this part of Unit 7? Or where in the textbook can I find help for this type of thing? So it'd be clarifying questions to help them understand that assignment. Okay. Any other questions? So the only other feature that I have to show you about Google Classroom is if I come back out to all of my classes. One of the things that teachers often ask about is, it's the end of the year, I've got 8 different classrooms in my list, how can I kind of clear things up? Currently, Google has given us the ability to archive a class. So archiving a class means it kind of tucks it away in a file folder somewhere. The students would then only have access to the work in their classroom folder. They would lose access to the links and the discussions and all that sort of stuff in your Google class. It wouldn't delete any of that. It would simply archive it so it's put away. Okay? And then after you, as a teacher, archive it, says you and your students won't be able to make changes. You can view this class, I as the teacher, in the archive. I can archive it, and then if I ever need that class back, I can click here, go to Archive Classes, and I can bring any one of those classes back. Okay, so that's currently what Google Classroom has as a feature right now. The other thing that this doesn't do, that a true learning management system would allow you to do as a teacher, is to make a copy of this class for next year. Okay, so that's something that Google Classroom hasn't built in yet in terms of creating a classroom template that you can use for next year's English class or something like that. Any other questions about the features of Google Classroom?
Can you make an assignment that you've already assigned into a draft to hide it
So
after they've submitted?
I know that, so if I take this, so let's say summary of the CapCUE Tech Fest. If I go to plus, I can reuse a post. So I can say, where is it? Oh, these are from all of my classes. So this would allow me to use something from a previous class. But if I were to take this and edit, no, it doesn't look like it gives me the ability to revert it to a draft form. I can delete it, or I can move it back up to the top so it's brought back to students' attention, but I don't see the ability to revert it to a draft. So the reuse a post does let me go. Now I'm curious. In the reuse a post, can I highlight? No, I can't highlight multiple assignments. So I can reuse one assignment at a time from a previous class. So reuse post does look like they're starting to build in the ability to bring back assignments from other classes. But it looks like it's done one at a time right now. Any other questions about Google Classroom? So right now what we have is about 2:15. So we've got about another 15 or so minutes. What I want to do at this point is log out of the demo accounts that I have and then walk you through creating your own classroom, creating your own assignments in Classroom, answering any questions that you have about that. Okay? So up here in the top right-hand corner, go ahead and sign out of the accounts that I gave you. Sign into your own Google Apps for Education accounts. And if you want to, in your own classrooms, create your own class. If you have a class that you're already working on, you can click on it, and we can walk through any of the features in the About section, the stream, where you're going to add assignments, anything you'd want at this point. Okay, so I'll give you a couple minutes to sign out of my accounts, sign into your own Google Classroom accounts. I'm going to go ahead and from up here, I'm going to walk people through the basics of creating their own class, going to the About section, adding some stuff. But if you have specific questions, go ahead and fire away whenever you're ready. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my list of calendars. So here are the list of calendars that I have. Okay. So the question has been, Google Classroom has been great. If I click on this, this is the Google Calendar that Classroom has created automatically for me. And so I should see on that calendar when I go to next week, my paperless learning environment has these assignments that are due. Okay? Those are the ones that I put in. They automatically appear from Google Classroom. But the question is, what if I have an existing calendar in Google Calendar and I want to put that calendar into Classroom? At the moment, I can't merge these two calendars. All I can do is I can make the other calendar public and give a link to it in Google Classroom. So what I would do, this calendar here is Ed Options PD. The first thing I'd do is I'd go to my share settings and make sure the calendar is public. After I make sure the calendar is public, I would come down here and go to my calendar settings. And in my calendar settings, I want to take the calendar address, the website address for that calendar, and copy it. Okay, so here's my address for that particular calendar. So I'm going to copy that. Okay? Then, after I copy the HTML address for that calendar, I go back to Google Classroom, and in my About section, I would post that as a link. Okay? Homework calendar. And so now I have a link to that calendar that people can see. It's unfortunate that they would have to click on this calendar to see your school-wide homework, and then they could click on this to open this classroom-specific one. But if you simply continued to post everything to your school-wide homework calendar, that's the only calendar they would have to check. So that's one option that you have available, but unfortunately you can't merge the two of them together at the moment. Does that answer your question? All right, so everybody was pretty comfortable with creating a classroom. I don't know if all of you are aware of this, but in your classroom on any particular page, you have the ability to change the theme of your classroom, select the theme. Google has given you a bunch of options. Or, of course, if you want to, you can upload your own photo. Here is a photo that I created this morning during a Google Drawing session. I had downloaded it as a JPEG. Okay, and then it's just, all right, which part of this do you want? So I'm going to choose that. Select class theme, and it changes it to what I created in Google Draw. So you would create it in Google Draw, download it as a JPEG, and then you can upload it as your new theme. Google Classroom, on every page, bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a question mark and send feedback. The Google Classroom team is very attentive to feedback. It's been really interesting to see how much this tool has changed since it was publicly released last August. So it's been in use in classrooms for a full year now. And when it opened last August, there wasn't an About page. You didn't have the ability to create draft assignments. You couldn't add a co-teacher or a partner teacher. Now you're able to do that in Google Classroom. This Google Calendar feature, that's completely new as of this week. So they really do listen to feedback. So I did forget to cover that, but as a teacher in the About section, you can invite co-teachers, partner teachers. And partner teachers can go in, make assignments, do grading. They can pretty much do everything except for archive and delete a classroom, because you are the one that owned that class. But you can invite a co-teacher and they can do everything else.